After a series of unexplained massacres, two detectives discover they're not hunting a man. They're hunting something far worse. I'm Mr. Midnight Hollow, your terrifying host, and you're about to hear that story in today's episode of Terrifying Encounters. If you're already part of our community, your support means the world to us. Each like, comment, and share helps uncover more stories like this. Or subscribe to see what rises from the depths of darkness and unfolds before you. Now, let's begin. That full moon night in August 2003, the heat sat on Portland like a wet blanket. Even at midnight, the temperature still hovered around 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Detective Frank Morrison had just poured his third cup of coffee when the call came in. Body found on Southeast Hawthorne Boulevard, near Lone Fir Cemetery. Possible animal attack. He grabbed his jacket out of habit, though he wouldn't need it, and headed out with his partner, Detective Rachel Winters. They'd worked homicides together for 8 years. They'd seen everything. Stabbings, shootings, strangulations. But nothing prepared them for what waited on Hawthorne. The victim was scattered across the parking lot behind the old Baghdad Theater. Scattered was the only word that fit. Officer Mike Rodriguez, first on scene, was vomiting into a trash can when Frank and Rachel arrived. Rodriguez was a Marine veteran, Iraq War, 2 tours. He'd seen combat. Seeing him break down made Frank's stomach tighten. The body belonged to David Patterson, 42, postal worker. Or it had been David Patterson. Now it was pieces. An arm hung from a dumpster, still wearing the blue USPS jacket. The torso lay 15 feet away, ripped open from throat to groin. Organs gleamed under the streetlights, steam still rising from them in the warm air. Rachel pulled out her flashlight and swept the scene. The beam caught something on the asphalt. A footprint. She knelt beside it, measuring with her hand. At least 12 inches long. The toes were wrong. Too long. Too spread out, and the claws, deep grooves in the pavement where claws had dug in. "That's not a dog," she said quietly. Frank photographed the print from multiple angles. He'd hunted his whole life. Deer, elk, even bear up in the Cascade Mountains. He knew animal tracks. This wasn't like anything he'd ever seen. It had the basic shape of a human foot, but stretched out, distorted. The heel was narrower. The toes ended in puncture marks where claws had pierced the asphalt with incredible force. The medical examiner, Dr. Lisa Hayes, arrived 20 minutes later. She walked the scene silently, her face grim. When she examined the body, she spent a long time studying the neck wound. "This was a bite," she said finally. "Look at the puncture pattern. Upper and lower jaw, massive pressure. I'd estimate somewhere around 1 to 200 pounds per square inch." What animal bites like that?" Frank asked. "Nothing in Oregon. Bears maybe come close, but the tooth pattern is wrong. These are more like wolf teeth, but scaled up. Way up." They searched the area for 3 hours. Found more footprints leading into the cemetery. Found blood trails. Found claw marks on a brick wall 8 feet up, as if something had climbed it easily. But no weapon, no human footprints except the victims. No tire tracks except those that belonged to regular traffic. The sun was rising when they finally left the scene. Frank drove Rachel back to the station in silence. What could they say? Animal attack was the obvious conclusion. But what animal? The news hit the morning broadcasts by 7 a.m. Brutal killing in Southeast Portland. The reporters danced around the details, but the word mauling appeared in every story. Animal control got involved. Fish and wildlife showed up. They talked about cougars, about bears wandering into the city, about packs of wild dogs. Frank knew better. He'd seen the victim's eyes. Wide open, frozen in terror. David Patterson had seen his killer, and whatever he'd seen had scared him more than anything should scare a man. The department held a press conference at noon. Chief Richard stood at the podium, looking uncomfortable. "We're investigating all possibilities. We're working with animal experts to determine what type of animal might be responsible. In the meantime, we're advising Portland residents to avoid being out alone after dark, especially near wooded areas." That got people's attention. Suddenly everyone was talking about it. Social media exploded. Theories ranged from escaped zoo animals to government experiments gone wrong. Someone started a thread about werewolves. Most people laughed it off. Frank didn't laugh. He couldn't stop thinking about those footprints, about the way the body had been torn apart with what seemed like rage, not hunger. An animal kills to eat. This thing had killed for pleasure. He spent the afternoon at the crime lab going over every piece of evidence. They'd collected hair samples from the scene, coarse, dark hair that didn't match any animal in their database. The lab tech ran it through every test they had. DNA came back inconclusive. Contaminated, the report said. But Frank saw the tech's expression. It wasn't contamination. It was confusion. "What is it?" he asked. The tech, a young guy named Brandon, shook his head. "The DNA has human markers and canine markers, both. That's not possible unless someone's dog hair got mixed with human hair at the scene. But these are all from the same follicles. It's like something that's part human, part animal. That can't be right." "I know. I'm running it again." Frank left the lab with a headache building behind his eyes. He stopped at a bar on his way home, somewhere dark and quiet where cops went to forget their day. Ordered a whiskey, neat. Drank it slow. The TV above the bar was showing the news. More coverage of the killing. An interview with a zoologist from the Oregon Zoo. The woman was saying something about how unlikely it was for a large predator to be in downtown Portland, how they'd have seen signs, how there would have been other incidents. Frank almost laughed. Other incidents, just wait. Because deep in his gut he knew this wasn't over. Whatever had killed David Patterson was still out there, and it was going to kill again. He finished his drink and headed home. His apartment was small, just a one-bedroom in northwest Portland. He lived alone. Had for 3 years since his divorce. Linda couldn't handle the job anymore, the late nights, the darkness he brought home with him. He couldn't blame her. He tried to sleep, but couldn't. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw David Patterson's face, saw those footprints, saw the claw marks on the wall. His phone rang at 3 a.m. It was Rachel. "Turn on the news," she said. He fumbled for the remote. Channel 8 was showing breaking news. Another attack, this time in Laurelhurst Park. 2 victims. Frank was dressed and out the door in under 2 minutes. The park was chaos when he arrived. Police cars everywhere, lights flashing, crime scene tape stretched across half the park. Frank ducked under the tape and found Rachel standing near the duck pond. "It's bad," she said. That was an understatement. The victims were Thomas Garrett, 61, retired teacher, and his grandson, Kyle Garrett, 14. They'd been walking home from a late movie, took a shortcut through the park. Big mistake. Thomas was missing his entire lower half, just gone. The legs, the hips, everything below the ribcage had been torn away. The upper body lay on the grass near the pond, arms spread wide like he'd tried to crawl away. Kyle was in the pond, face down. When they pulled him out, Frank wished they hadn't. The boy's back had been opened from shoulder to hip, spine visible, ribs cracked and pulled apart like someone opening a book too hard. But Thomas had survived long enough to leave something behind. Scratched into the dirt with his finger, barely visible, were 4 letters. WOLF. He was trying to write wolf, Rachel said, her voice shaking. He saw it. He knew what it was. Frank knelt beside the message. The letters were shaky, made with a dying man's last strength. But they were clear enough. Wolf. We need to talk to someone who knows about this stuff, Frank said. About wolves, about predators, about things that shouldn't exist. Rachel looked at him. What are you saying? I'm saying we're not dealing with a normal animal. They found more tracks. This time there were dozens of them, circling the pond, leading into the trees, coming back out. The thing had played with its victims, chased them, caught them, killed them slowly. Dr. Hayes arrived just before dawn. She examined both bodies, her expression growing darker by the minute. The grandfather's legs weren't cut off, she said. They were torn off. The force required to do that is incredible. We're talking thousands of pounds of pressure. Could a bear do it? Frank asked, though he already knew the answer. No. A grizzly maybe could rip someone apart, but not like this. This is surgical. Look at the boy. His spine was exposed with precision. Whatever did this knew exactly where to cut. Things don't know, Frank said. Animals don't know anatomy. Exactly. The word hung in the air between them. If it wasn't an animal, what was it? They searched the park until noon, found more hair samples, found what looked like blood that didn't belong to either victim, found a tree with claw marks running up the trunk 20 feet high, found a jogger who'd been in the park around 11 p.m., just an hour before the attack. Her name was Jennifer Mills. She was 28, worked at a tech company downtown. She was shaking so hard she could barely hold the coffee they'd brought her. I saw something, she said. I thought I was crazy. I didn't report it because I thought I was seeing things. What did you see? Rachel asked gently. I was running on the trail near the pond. I heard something in the trees, something big, moving fast. I stopped. I don't know why, maybe instinct. And then I saw it. What was it? It was tall, maybe 7 feet. It was on 2 legs, but it wasn't human. The legs were bent wrong, like a dog's back legs. And it was covered in fur. Dark fur. And its face. She stopped, tears running down her cheeks. Its face was wrong. It had a snout, but the eyes were in the front, like a person's. And it was looking right at me. What did you do? I ran. I ran as fast as I could. I didn't look back. I heard it behind me for a few seconds, and then nothing. It just stopped chasing me. I thought maybe I'd imagined it. But I didn't, did I? No, Frank said quietly. You didn't. After Jennifer left, Frank and Rachel sat in the car. Neither spoke for a long time. Finally, Rachel said, "We can't put this in a report." I know. They'll think we're crazy. I know. But we both know what we're dealing with. Frank looked at her. Say it. A werewolf. We're hunting a werewolf in Portland. The media frenzy started the next morning. Cable news picked up the story. Terror in Portland. Multiple brutal killings. They showed aerial footage of Laurelhurst Park, the crime scene tape, the covered bodies being loaded into ambulances. They interviewed neighbors who heard screaming. They brought in experts who had no idea what they were talking about. Frank watched it all from his desk, nursing cold coffee and a migraine that wouldn't quit. He'd been up for 36 hours straight. His eyes burned. His hands shook slightly when he reached for his phone. Rachel walked in carrying a folder thick with reports. She looked as bad as he felt. Dark circles under her eyes, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail, coffee stain on her shirt. Brandon called from the lab, she said. The hair samples from both scenes match, same animal, same DNA anomaly. He's freaking out because he can't classify it. Did he run it through the FBI database? Yeah, nothing. He even sent it to a geneticist friend at Portland State. The guy said it's either a hoax or they've discovered a new species. It's not a hoax. I know. Frank opened the folder, crime scene photos from both attacks. He spread them across his desk, studying the pattern. Both attacks happened after midnight, both on full moon nights. Both victims were caught in areas with tree cover nearby. "It's hunting," he said. "Look at this." David Patterson was near the cemetery, lots of trees. Thomas and Kyle were in the park. More trees. It needs cover. So it's intelligent. Yeah, it's picking its hunting grounds carefully. Rachel pulled up a chair. "I did some research last night. Couldn't sleep anyway. You know Portland has werewolf legends?" Frank looked up. "What?" "Back in the 1800s, there were stories about wolves attacking settlers on the outskirts of town. But the descriptions were always weird. Wolves that walked on two legs. Wolves with human eyes. Most people wrote it off as hysteria or misidentified bears." "Where'd you find this?" "Old newspaper archives at the library. The Oregonian had a whole series about it in 1887. 7 people were killed over 3 months, all during full moons. Then the attacks just stopped." "Why?" "No one knows. The papers say some hunters went into the forest and came back saying they'd killed it. But no body was ever shown. And the descriptions of what they killed varied wildly." Frank leaned back in his chair. This was insane. They were sitting here talking about werewolves like they were real. Like they were something that actually existed. But 3 people were dead. 3 people torn apart by something that left footprints that were half human, half animal. Something that Jennifer Mills had seen with her own eyes. "We need to find someone who knows about this," Frank said. "Really knows. Not some historian or scientist who will laugh us out of their office." "I might know someone," Rachel said. "My uncle? He lives out in Estacada. He's one of those guys who believes in everything. Bigfoot, UFOs, cryptids. He used to tell me stories when I was a kid. I thought he was crazy." "Can you call him?" "Already did. He's expecting us." They drove out to Estacada that afternoon. It took about 40 minutes, heading east into the foothills of the Cascades. The city fell away behind them, replaced by dense forest and winding roads. Rachel's uncle, Vincent Hartley, lived in a cabin 5 miles off the main highway. The property was surrounded by tall pines, isolated, no neighbors in sight. A hand-painted sign near the mailbox read, "Private property, stay out." Vincent was waiting on the porch. He was in his 70s, lean and weathered, with long gray hair pulled back in a ponytail. He wore jeans and a flannel shirt, boots that had seen better days. His eyes were sharp, alert. "Rachel," he said, hugging his niece. "Been too long." "I know, Uncle Vince. This is my partner, Frank Morrison." Vincent shook Frank's hand. His grip was strong. "Detective Morrison, Rachel says you're hunting something." "We're trying to figure out what killed 3 people in Portland," Frank said carefully. "And you think it's a werewolf?" Frank and Rachel exchanged glances. Rachel must have told him on the phone. Vincent laughed. "Don't look so worried. Come inside. Let's talk." The cabin was exactly what Frank expected. Books everywhere, stacked on shelves, piled on tables, covering most of the floor. Maps on the walls showing forests and mountain ranges. Photos pinned up showing blurry shapes in woods, tracks in snow, scratches on trees. Vincent cleared some books off a couch and gestured for them to sit. He made coffee while they waited, strong and black. "I've been tracking strange occurrences in the Pacific Northwest for 40 years, Vincent said, settling into an armchair. "Bears that weren't bears. Wolves that weren't wolves. Things people see and then refuse to talk about because they think they'll sound crazy." "And werewolves?" Frank asked. "They're real. I've never seen one personally, but I've seen what they leave behind. I've talked to survivors. I've mapped attack patterns going back 200 years. He pulled out a large map of Oregon and spread it on the coffee table. Red dots covered the map, concentrated in certain areas, Portland had more dots than anywhere else. This city has a history, Vincent said. There have been attacks here since before it was even called Portland. The Native American tribes in this area had legends about shapeshifters, humans who became wolves under the full moon. They called them skinwalkers in some tribes, spirit wolves in others. How does it work? Rachel asked. How does someone become one? The most common way is through a bite. If a werewolf bites you and you survive, you become one. But there are other ways. Curses, rituals. Sometimes it's hereditary, passed down through bloodlines. Frank thought about the DNA samples, human and canine markers mixed together. Bloodlines. How do you kill one? He asked. Vincent's expression grew grim. Silver is the traditional method. Silver bullet through the heart or head. But they're incredibly hard to kill. They heal fast. They're strong. A full-grown werewolf can lift a car. They can run at speeds up to 40 miles per hour. Their senses are enhanced. They can smell you from half a mile away. So we're outmatched. In a straight fight? Yes. But they have weaknesses. They're slaves to the moon cycle. They transform during full moons whether they want to or not. And they lose human reasoning when they're changed. They become pure predator. Smart, but driven by instinct. Rachel was taking notes. How do we find it? When it's in human form. That's the hard part. They look completely normal. Could be anyone. Your neighbor, your co-worker. They don't even know what they are sometimes, if they're new. They black out during transformations, wake up not remembering what they did. Frank felt his stomach turn. Someone in Portland was a werewolf. Someone who might not even know it. Someone who was killing people and then going back to their normal life. The next full moon is in 3 weeks, Vincent said. It'll kill again, and it won't stop until someone stops it. They stayed for another hour, Vincent showing them his research, his photos, his collected evidence. When they finally left, the sun was setting, painting the forest in shades of orange and red. Frank drove back toward Portland in silence. Rachel stared out the window. Do you believe him? She asked finally. I don't know. But I believe something killed 3 people. And I believe we don't have an explanation that makes sense. So what do? We prepare. We wait for the next full moon. And we try to be ready. But how do you prepare to fight a monster? They got their answer 2 days later. Frank was at his apartment when his phone rang. It was Chief Richards. Morrison, we got another one. Another body? No, a survivor. Frank was at the hospital in 15 minutes. Rachel met him in the lobby. They took the elevator to the 3rd floor, to the ICU. The survivor's name was Brandon Pierce, 35, construction worker. He was in bad shape. Hooked up to machines, bandages covering most of his torso, face swollen and bruised. But he was alive. His wife, Angela, sat beside the bed, holding his hand. Her eyes were red from crying. He can't talk much, Angela said. The doctors say his vocal cords were damaged, but he's been trying to tell me something about what attacked him. Frank approached the bed carefully. Brandon's eyes tracked him. There was fear in those eyes. Raw, primal fear. Mr. Pierce, Frank said quietly. I'm Detective Morrison. Can you tell me what happened? Brandon's mouth moved. His voice came out as a raspy whisper. Thing, big thing. What kind of thing? Wolf, but not wolf, stood up, walked like man. Where did this happen? Powell Butte, hiking trail, alone. Stupid, Powell Butte. Nature Park, East Portland, another park, another attack. What did it look like? Marcus closed his eyes, tears leaked out. Tall, 7 feet, fur, black fur, face wrong, too human. Teeth, so many teeth. How did you survive? Ran. It caught me. clawed my back. I fell down slope, hit tree, blacked out, woke up at bottom. It was gone. Did it say anything? Make any sounds? Brandon's eyes opened wide. Laughed. It laughed, like person laughing. A chill ran down Frank's spine. It laughed. The thing had laughed while attacking him. They left Marcus to rest. In the hallway, Rachel grabbed Frank's arm. "It's getting bolder," she said. "Powell Butte is more remote than the other locations. It's testing its range. Or it's getting hungrier." They drove to Powell Butte that evening. The park was closed, crime scene tape across the entrance. They ducked under it and hiked up to where Marcus had been attacked. The trail was steep, winding through dense forest. After about a mile, they found the scene. Blood on the ground, lots of it. Claw marks on a tree trunk where Marcus must have tried to climb. Torn fabric from his jacket. And footprints, dozens of them, circling the area. Following Brandon's path down the slope where he'd fallen. Rachel photographed everything while Frank walked the perimeter. The attack had happened in daylight. Around 4 p.m., according to Brandon's statement, the thing had attacked in broad daylight. "It's not following the pattern," Frank said. "The moon isn't full. It's still 3 weeks away." "Maybe it doesn't need a full moon to transform," Rachel suggested. "Maybe that's just when it's strongest." That was a terrifying thought. If the thing could transform whenever it wanted, they were dealing with a threat that could strike any time, anywhere. They hiked back to the car as darkness fell. The forest around them seemed alive with sounds. Every crack of a branch made Frank's hand move toward his gun. That night, Frank couldn't sleep again. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Brandon Pierce's words. It laughed. What kind of creature laughs while it kills? A creature that enjoys it. A creature that knows what it's doing. His phone buzzed. Text from Rachel. "Can't sleep. Meet at the station?" He texted back, 20 minutes. They spent the night going through everything again. All the evidence, all the reports, all the witness statements. Trying to find a pattern, trying to find something they'd missed. Around 3 a.m., Rachel found it. "Look at this," she said, pulling up a map on her computer. She'd marked all the attack locations: Hawthorne Boulevard, Laurelhurst Park, Powell Butte. She drew lines connecting them. They formed a triangle, and right in the center of that triangle was a neighborhood. Belmont. "What if it lives here?" Rachel said, tapping the screen. "What if its hunting ground is a circle, and Belmont is the center?" Frank leaned closer. "How many people live in that area?" "About 10,000. 10,000 suspects, but it was more than they'd had before. "We start canvassing tomorrow," Frank said, "door to door. We look for anyone who fits the profile." "What profile?" "Someone who's isolated. Someone with a history of violence, maybe. Someone who goes missing on certain nights." It wasn't much, but it was something. They worked through the dawn, building a plan, making lists, coordinating with other detectives. Chief Richards approved additional resources. The entire department was on alert. But 3 days later, before they could make real progress, the thing struck again. This time, it was brutal. Savage, a massacre. 3 college students in Mount Tabor Park, late-night bonfire, drinking, laughing, enjoying summer break. The thing came out of the darkness and slaughtered them all. When Frank and Rachel arrived at the scene just after midnight, they found body parts scattered across 50 feet. The students had tried to run. It had hunted them down one by one. The first victim, Tyler Harrison, 21, had made it about 30 feet before being caught. His body had been torn in half at the waist. The second, Emma Rodriguez, 20, was found in a tree. She'd climbed up trying to escape. The thing had climbed up after her. Her body hung from the branches, impaled on broken limbs. The third, Jason Chu, 22, had almost made it to the parking lot. Almost. He died 10 feet from his car. His throat was missing. Just gone. Ripped out completely. The bonfire still burned when they arrived, casting flickering shadows across the carnage. And there, drawn in blood on a picnic table, was a message. 3 words, written in letters 2 feet tall. I see you. The message changed everything. I see you meant the creature knew it was being hunted. It was aware, it was intelligent, and it was taunting them. Frank stood in front of the bloody words, camera flashing as the forensics team documented everything. The blood was still wet, dripping down the wooden table in thick rivulets. Someone had used their fingers to write it. The letters were crude, but deliberate. It knows we're looking for it, Rachel said beside him. Her voice was hollow. This is a game to it. Games have rules, Frank replied. We figure out the rules, we figure out how to win. But he didn't feel confident. 6 people dead in 2 weeks, and they were no closer to finding the killer than they'd been after the first body. Chief Richards arrived on scene at 2 a.m., accompanied by the mayor and a FBI liaison. The federal government was getting involved now. Too many deaths, too much media attention. Portland was becoming known as the city with a monster problem. The FBI agent's name was Special Agent Diana Torres. She was in her 40s, sharp-eyed, with gray streaking through her dark hair. She walked the crime scene with the practiced detachment of someone who'd seen death many times. After surveying everything, she pulled Frank and Rachel aside. I've read your reports, Torres said. The DNA evidence, the footprints, the witness statements. You know what you're dealing with. An animal, Frank said carefully. Don't bullshit me, detective. I've been with the Bureau for 20 years. I've worked on cases that never made it into public reports, cases involving things that aren't supposed to exist. I know what a werewolf kill looks like. Frank and Rachel exchanged glances. Finally, someone who believed them. How many cases? Rachel asked. 14 that I know of personally. Probably more that get classified differently. The Bureau has a division that handles paranormal threats. Small division, very quiet. We call them X-Files cases internally, after the TV show. So what do? Frank asked. We kill it. But first we have to find it, and that means we need to understand it. Torres had brought files, thick folders containing reports from other werewolf attacks across the country. Wisconsin, 1999, 5 deaths. Montana, 2001, 8 deaths. Florida, 1997, 12 deaths. They spread the files across a table at the police station, working through the night, looking for patterns, looking for anything that could help. Most werewolves are made, not born, Torres explained. Someone gets bitten, they survive, they become infected. The transformation is involuntary at first, triggered by the full moon. But as they age, as they learn control, they can transform at will. How old do you think this one is? Rachel asked. Based on the level of control and the deliberate nature of the attacks, at least 5 years infected, maybe more. This isn't a newbie losing control. This is an experienced predator. So it knows what it's doing, Frank said. Absolutely. The message proves that. It's toying with you. It enjoys the fear, the chaos. That makes it more dangerous. They worked through files until dawn. By the time the sun rose, Frank's eyes burned and his head pounded. But they had a plan. We set a trap, Torres said. We use ourselves as bait. The plan was simple, but risky. They would identify likely hunting grounds based on the previous attacks. Then they would station armed officers in those locations during high-risk times. Plain clothes, undercover, waiting. But they needed something to draw the creature out. Something irresistible. Blood, Torres said. Fresh blood. Werewolves can smell it from miles away. We set up in a park, simulate an injury, and wait for it to come investigate. That's insane, Chief Richards said when they presented the plan. You're asking me to authorize using my officers as bait for a monster. 6 people are dead, Frank said. More will die if we don't act. This thing is escalating. The attacks are getting closer together, more violent. It's losing control or it's getting bored. Either way, we're running out of time. Richard stared at the crime scene photos spread across his desk. Tyler Harrison ripped in half. Emma Rodriguez impaled in a tree. Jason Chu with his throat gone. Do it, he said finally. But you better damn well catch this thing. They spent 3 days preparing. Torres brought in specialized ammunition, silver-tipped bullets. The FBI had a supplier, apparently. Someone who made bullets specifically for killing werewolves. Regular bullets will slow it down, Torres explained as she loaded magazines. But silver is the only thing that will kill it permanently. Aim for the heart or the head. Anywhere else and it'll just heal and come back angrier. Frank held one of the bullets up to the light. It looked like any other bullet, except for the dull gray color of the tip. How does it work? He asked. The silver? No one really knows. Some kind of reaction with the infection. Silver disrupts the transformation at a cellular level. Causes massive system failure. It's like poison to them. They chose Forest Park for the trap. It was Portland's largest park, over 5,000 acres of dense forest stretching along the hills above the city. The creature had attacked in every other major park. It made sense it would eventually come here. The next full moon was in 1 week, but they couldn't wait. The thing had already proven it could attack any time. They set up on a Wednesday night. Frank, Rachel, Torres, and 6 other officers spread out through a section of the park near the Wildwood Trail. They'd brought fresh pig's blood in bags, spilled it on the ground, let the smell carry on the wind. Then they waited. The forest at night was alive with sounds, wind through the trees, animals moving in the undergrowth, owls calling, normal sounds, innocent sounds. Frank crouched behind a fallen log, rifle in hand, eyes scanning the darkness. His radio earpiece crackled softly with status updates from the other officers. 1 hour passed, then 2, then 3. Nothing. Frank was starting to think the trap had failed when Rachel's voice came through the radio, urgent and quiet. Movement, north side, something big. Frank's heart rate spiked. He adjusted his position, aiming his rifle toward the north. Through the trees, about 100 yards away, he saw something move, a shadow darker than the surrounding darkness. Large. Moving with purpose. Hold position, Torres's voice commanded through the radio. Let it get closer. We need a clear shot. The shadow moved closer. Frank could make out a shape now. It was huge, at least 7 feet tall. Moving on 2 legs, but with a gait that was wrong. Too fluid. Too animal. It stopped near where they'd spilled the blood. Lowered its head. Sniffing. Frank held his breath. His finger rested on the trigger. Not yet. Not yet. The creature raised its head suddenly. Turned, looking directly at where Frank was hiding. Even from 50 yards away, Frank could see its eyes. They glowed yellow in the darkness, like headlights, like nothing natural. It knows, Rachel whispered over the radio. It knows we're here. The creature tilted its head, studying them. Then it opened its mouth and made a sound that Frank would hear in his nightmares for the rest of his life. It wasn't a howl. It wasn't a growl. It was laughter. Human laughter. deep and cruel and wrong coming from that throat. Then it moved. Frank had never seen anything move so fast. 1 second it was 50 yards away. The next, it was 20. Then 10. "Fire!" Torres screamed. Gunfire erupted. Frank squeezed his trigger, the rifle kicking against his shoulder. The silver-tipped bullet hit the creature center mass. It stumbled, roared, but didn't fall. More gunfire from the other officers. The creature spun, snarling, blood spraying from multiple wounds, but it kept coming. It grabbed the nearest officer, a young guy named Patterson, and threw him 15 feet into a tree. Patterson hit with a sickening crack and dropped motionless to the ground. Rachel fired 3 rounds into the creature's back. It wheeled on her, eyes blazing with rage. She backpedaled, firing again, but the thing was too fast. Frank ran toward them, firing as he moved. "Rachel, down!" She dropped. Frank's bullet caught the creature in the shoulder. It screamed, a sound of pure fury and pain, and turned on him. Up close, it was worse than he'd imagined. The face was a nightmare blend of human and wolf. The snout was elongated, filled with teeth too large and too many. But the bone structure was human. The eyes, yellow and terrible, held human intelligence. It lunged at Frank. He threw himself sideways, felt claws rake across his ribs. Pain exploded through his side. He hit the ground hard, rolled, came up firing. The creature took 2 more rounds to the chest. It swayed. Blood poured from multiple wounds. For a moment, Frank thought they had it. Then it smiled. Actually smiled. A grotesque pulling back of lips to show every tooth. And it ran, not away from them, toward the other officers. What followed was chaos. The creature moved through them like a whirlwind of claws and teeth. Officer Martinez went down screaming, his arm torn off at the shoulder. Officer Kim fired point blank into the creature's head and died when it crushed his skull with one massive hand. Torres was shouting into her radio, calling for backup, firing her pistol with mechanical precision. She hit the creature 6 times. It bled. It slowed. But it didn't stop. Frank reloaded, his hands shaking, blood running down his side from where the claws had cut him. He aimed for the creature's head. Fired. The bullet grazed its skull, taking off part of an ear. The creature turned, fixed its eyes on Frank, started toward him with murder in its gaze. Rachel stepped between them and emptied her entire magazine into the creature's chest. It stopped, looked down at the holes in its torso. Blood fountained out. The creature swayed, took 1 step forward, then another. Then it fell. The forest went silent except for the moaning of wounded officers and heavy breathing. Frank approached the fallen creature carefully, rifle trained on its head. It lay on its side, chest heaving with labored breaths. Blood pooled beneath it, black in the darkness. "Is it dead?" Rachel asked, her voice shaking. "I don't know." Torres joined them, reloading her pistol. "Step back. Let me finish it." She aimed at the creature's head. Her finger tightened on the trigger. The creature's eyes opened. It moved faster than thought, lashed out with one arm, caught Torres's leg and pulled her down. She screamed, firing wildly. The bullets went wide. The creature's jaws opened impossibly wide. Frank didn't think. He shoved his rifle barrel into the creature's mouth and pulled the trigger. The back of its skull exploded. Brain matter and bones sprayed across the forest floor. The creature went limp. This time, it didn't get up. They stood there for a long moment, no one moving, no one speaking. The creature's body lay between them, massive and terrible even in death. Then it began to change. The fur receded. The snout shortened. The claws retracted. Bones shifted with sounds like breaking glass. Within minutes, what lay before them wasn't a monster. It was a man. Middle-aged, maybe 50, naked, covered in bullet wounds. His face was ordinary. The kind of face you'd pass on the street and never notice. Frank knelt beside the body, checked for ID, found nothing. No wallet, no keys, nothing to identify who this person had been. "We need to find out who he is," Torres said. She was holding her leg where the creature had grabbed her. Bruises were already forming. If he's been infected for years, there might be others. People he bit, people he turned. That thought made Frank's blood run cold. This might not be over. Backup arrived 15 minutes later. Ambulances for the wounded, body bags for the dead. They'd lost 3 officers: Patterson, Martinez, and Kim. 5 more were injured. The creature's body was loaded into an unmarked van. Torres said it would be taken to a federal facility for study. Frank didn't ask where. He didn't want to know. He and Rachel were treated at the scene. Frank's ribs required 12 stitches. Rachel had deep bruises across her back where she'd hit the ground. Both were given antibiotics, just in case. Dawn was breaking when they finally left the park. Frank drove Rachel home. Neither spoke. What was there to say? At Rachel's apartment, she paused before getting out. "We killed it," she said. "It's over." "Is it?" Frank asked. She didn't answer, just got out and walked inside. Frank drove home as the city woke up around him. People heading to work, kids waiting for school buses, normal life. They had no idea what had been prowling their streets, what had been killing their neighbors. He got to his apartment and collapsed on his couch. He should shower, should eat, should sleep. But he just sat there staring at nothing. His phone rang. Torres. "We got an ID on the body," she said. His name was Richard Coleman, 48 years old. Lived in the Belmont neighborhood. Belmont? Right in the center of the triangle they'd mapped. "What else?" Frank asked, because he could hear it in her voice. There was more. He was married, 2 kids, worked as an accountant. Completely normal life. Until 5 years ago, he went on a camping trip to Montana. Came back different. His wife filed a missing persons report 3 days ago. Said he'd been disappearing at night. Acting strange. Does she know what he was? No, and we're not telling her. Official story is he died in a park accident. Animal attack. That's bullshit. That's the job. We can't let people know werewolves are real. The panic would be catastrophic. Frank hung up without saying goodbye. He was too tired to care about politics and cover-ups. He finally dragged himself to the shower. Let hot water run over him until it went cold. Watched blood swirl down the drain. When he got out, his phone was buzzing again. Text from Rachel. "Turn on the news." He turned on the TV. Every channel was covering the same story. Hero officers stopped serial killer in Forest Park. They were calling it a serial killer. A disturbed individual who'd committed the murders and was killed while resisting arrest. Nothing about werewolves, nothing about monsters. Just another crazy person in a world full of crazy people. Frank turned off the TV, took 2 sleeping pills, lay down, and finally, mercifully, fell asleep. He dreamed of yellow eyes and human laughter coming from an inhuman throat. When he woke 12 hours later, it was dark again. He checked his phone, 15 missed calls, 20 text messages, all from Rachel. He called her back. "Frank, you need to get to the station, now." "What happened?" "There's been another attack." His blood went cold. "That's impossible. We killed it." "I know, but someone just got torn apart in Laurelhurst Park. Same M.O. Same claw marks, same everything." Frank got dressed in a daze, put on his gun, his badge, drove to the station with his mind racing. They'd killed Richard Coleman. They'd watched him die. Watched him transform back into a human. But there was another one. Torres met him and Rachel in the conference room. She looked as bad as Frank felt. "Coleman bit someone," she said without preamble. "Sometime in the past 5 years, he infected someone else. And now that Coleman's dead, the pack dynamic has shifted. The new one is establishing dominance." "How do we find it?" Frank asked. "We look at Coleman's life, everyone he interacted with, everyone he might have bitten." They worked through the night again, pulled Coleman's phone records, his credit card statements, his social media, built a map of his life. He'd been a normal guy, coached his kids' soccer team, volunteered at a food bank, went to church on Sundays. But 5 years ago, after that camping trip to Montana, things changed. He started missing work, missing family events. His wife's statement said he would disappear for days at a time with no explanation. And there were hospital records. 3 different people who'd been admitted with severe animal bites. All claimed Coleman's dog had attacked them. But Coleman didn't have a dog. 3 people. 3 potential werewolves. They tracked down the first 2. One was a woman named Patricia Simmons. She'd moved to Seattle 2 years ago. Seattle PD confirmed she was alive and working as a nurse. No reports of attacks in her area. The second was an elderly man named George Patterson, who died of a heart attack 6 months ago. Natural causes. The third was a 26-year-old man named Derek Walsh. Last known address was the apartment in southeast Portland. They went there at dawn, knocked on the door. No answer. Frank and Rachel exchanged glances. Rachel tried the doorknob. It was unlocked. They entered with guns drawn. The apartment was small, dingy, smelling of old food and unwashed clothes. The living room was a disaster. Furniture overturned, claw marks on the walls. In the bedroom, they found clothes shredded and covered in blood. The window was open, the screen torn out. "He was here," Rachel said. "Recently." They searched the apartment, found journals in a closet. Derek had been documenting his transformation, dated entries going back 3 years. "I can't control it anymore. The hunger is too strong. I tried to resist, locked myself in, but when the moon is full, I can't fight it. I'm becoming the monster." The last entry was dated 2 days ago. "Coleman is dead. I felt it when he died, like something breaking inside me. Now I'm the alpha. Now I have to feed. God help me. God help anyone who gets in my way." Frank closed the journal, looked at Rachel. "We need to find him before nightfall." But Portland was a big city, and Derek Walsh had vanished into it like a ghost. Somewhere out there, a new werewolf was hunting, and this time, it knew they were coming. Derek Walsh was a ghost in the city. No credit card usage, no phone activity, no sightings. He'd gone completely off the grid. Frank and Rachel spent 2 days chasing dead ends, talked to Derek's former co-workers at a warehouse where he'd worked until 6 months ago. They all said the same thing. Quiet guy, kept to himself. Started calling in sick a lot before he finally stopped showing up. His landlord said Derek had always paid rent in cash, never caused problems, never had visitors, the perfect invisible tenant. He was preparing, Torres said during their 3rd strategy meeting. He knew what he was becoming. He was isolating himself, trying to minimize contact with people he might hurt. "So why is he killing now?" Rachel asked. "If he spent 3 years trying to control it, why lose control now?" "Because Coleman's dead," Torres replied. "In a pack, there's a hierarchy. The alpha keeps the others in check. With Coleman gone, Derek's wolf has no restraints. It's like releasing a pressure valve." Frank rubbed his eyes. He'd slept maybe 10 hours in the past 4 days. His ribs still ached where the creature had clawed him. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Richard Coleman's face morphing between human and monster. "We need to think like him," Frank said. He's smart. He's been hiding for 3 years. Where would he go? Somewhere isolated, Rachel suggested. Somewhere he can transform without witnesses. Torres pulled up a map of Portland on the conference room screen. Forest Park is too obvious now. We've got patrols all through it. Mount Tabor's the same. He needs somewhere new. Powell Butte, Frank said, where Brandon Pierce was attacked. It's remote, lots of coverage. And Derek already killed there once. It's a starting point, Torres agreed. They organized a search team, 20 officers, 10 FBI agents, all armed with silver ammunition. They moved into Powell Butte Nature Park at dusk, spreading out in teams of 4. Frank partnered with Rachel and 2 FBI agents he didn't know. They took the eastern trails, moving slowly, weapons ready, every sense on high alert. The park was quiet. Too quiet. No birds, no insects. Just wind through the trees and the sound of their own breathing. They'd been searching for an hour when Frank's radio crackled. Torres's voice, tense. We found something. Northwest quadrant. You need to see this. They hiked to the coordinates, found Torres and her team standing in a small clearing. The ground was torn up like something had been digging, but it wasn't the ground that made Frank's stomach turn. It was the bodies. 3 deer carcasses hung from tree branches, gutted and drained of blood. Below them, arranged in a circle, were human bones, skulls, femurs, ribs, dozens of bones. He's been killing here for a while, Torres said quietly. This is his feeding ground. Rachel photographed everything while the forensics team worked. The bones were old. Some looked like they'd been here for months. Others were recent, still carrying traces of tissue. How many people? Frank asked the medical examiner who'd arrived on scene. At least 7 different individuals, Dr. Hayes replied. Maybe more. Some of these bones are too fragmented to identify. 7 people. 7 victims they didn't even know about. Check missing persons reports, Frank ordered. Cross-reference with anyone who disappeared near this area in the last 3 years. While the team processed the scene, Frank walked the perimeter of the clearing. Derek had chosen this spot carefully. It was hidden from the main trails, dense tree cover overhead, multiple escape routes. He found more evidence of Derek's presence, scraps of clothing, empty water bottles, a sleeping bag stuffed into a hollow tree. Derek had been living here, not in his apartment. Here in the woods, trying to stay away from people. But the monster inside him wouldn't let him stay away forever. Frank's radio crackled again. Different voice this time. Officer Rodriguez from the south perimeter. Detectives, we've got fresh tracks. Really fresh. Leading west toward the residential area. Frank's blood went cold. The residential area. Houses, families, children. All units converge on the west side, Torres commanded through the radio. Move fast, but stay together. Do not engage alone. They ran through the forest, following the tracks. They were easy to spot now. Deep impressions in the soft earth. 4-toed prints with claw marks extending inches beyond each toe. The tracks led them to the edge of the park, where the tree line ended and suburban Portland began. Neat rows of houses with manicured lawns, cars in driveways, kids' bikes on sidewalks. The tracks continued across someone's backyard, over a fence, through an alley. He's hunting, Rachel said, breathing hard as they ran. He's looking for prey. They followed the trail through 3 more yards before the tracks suddenly stopped at a street corner. Asphalt. No more tracks. Split up, Torres ordered. Teams of 4. Canvass every street within half a mile. Look for broken windows, open doors, anything unusual? Frank's team took the northern streets. They moved house to house, knocking on doors, asking if anyone had seen anything strange. Most people said no. A few reported hearing dogs barking frantically around 7 p.m. One woman said her garbage cans had been knocked over and scattered across her driveway. They were approaching the end of their search grid when they heard screaming, 3 blocks east. A woman's voice, high and terrified, cutting through the evening air. Frank ran, Rachel beside him, the FBI agents following. Other teams converging from different directions. The screams were coming from a 2-story house with blue siding. The front door was open, hanging crooked on its hinges. Something had forced it open from the outside. Frank entered first, gun raised. The living room was destroyed. Furniture overturned. Pictures knocked off walls, blood on the carpet. A lot of blood. The screaming continued from upstairs. Frank took the stairs 3 at a time. Found an open bedroom door. Inside, a woman was pressed into a corner, holding a baseball bat with shaking hands. Blood ran down her face from a gash on her forehead. "Where is it?" Frank demanded. She pointed at the closet. The closet door was closed, but Frank could hear something inside. Breathing. Heavy and wet. And a smell. That animal musk mixed with blood and something worse. "Get her out of here," Frank told Rachel. Rachel grabbed the woman and pulled her toward the stairs. Frank kept his rifle trained on the closet door. The 2 FBI agents flanked him, their pistols raised. "Derek Walsh," Frank called out. "We know who you are. We know what you are. Come out slowly." The breathing inside the closet stopped. Then the door exploded outward. The creature came out in a blur of fur and claws. It was massive, bigger than Coleman had been, 8 feet tall at least, shoulders so broad they barely fit through the doorway. Frank fired. His bullet hit the creature's chest. It roared and backhanded him across the room. He hit the wall hard enough to crack drywall. The FBI agents fired. Multiple shots center mass. The creature took them all and kept moving. Grabbed one agent and threw him out the window. Glass shattered. The agent's scream cut off as he hit the ground 2 stories below. The second agent managed to get off 3 more shots before the creature's jaws clamped around his throat and ripped it out. Rachel appeared in the doorway and emptied her magazine into the creature's back. It spun, blood spraying, and lunged at her. She dove sideways. The creature hit the door frame and stuck for a moment, too large to fit through easily. That moment was enough. Frank recovered his rifle and fired point blank into the creature's head. The silver bullet punched through its skull and exploded out the other side. The creature collapsed. Its massive body blocked the doorway, twitching. Blood pooled beneath it, soaking into the carpet. Frank and Rachel stared at it, weapons raised, waiting for it to get back up. It didn't move. "Is it dead?" Rachel asked. "I don't know. I thought Coleman was dead 3 times before he actually died." Torres arrived with backup. They cleared the house room by room, found the woman's husband in the bathroom, still alive but badly hurt. His arm was broken and he had deep claw marks across his chest. Paramedics rushed him out. The creature's body lay in the bedroom doorway for another hour while they figured out how to move it. It was too heavy for 4 men to lift. They finally had to cut a hole in the wall to get it out. As they moved the body, it began to change. The transformation was slower than Coleman's had been, like the body was fighting it. But eventually the fur receded, the bones shifted, and Derek Walsh's human face emerged. He looked younger than his 26 years, almost boyish. Blood covered his naked body from a dozen wounds. His eyes were open, staring at nothing. Frank searched the body while Torres called in the cleanup crew. Found scars on Derek's right shoulder, bite marks, old and healed over. That's where Coleman had infected him. 2 down, Torres said, standing beside Frank. But Walsh's journal mentioned feeding grounds, multiple locations. He was killing regularly. So there might be more people he bit, Rachel said. More infections. Torres nodded grimly. We need to find everyone Derek came into contact with over the past 3 years. Everyone who might have been bitten. That meant hundreds of potential victims, thousands of hours of investigation. They worked through the night, built lists, made calls, checked hospital records for animal bite treatments, cross-referenced missing persons reports. By dawn, they had 17 potential cases. 17 people who'd reported animal attacks in areas where Derek Walsh had been active. They spent the next week tracking down each person. Most were fine. Normal people with scars from dog bites or falls. But 3 couldn't be found. James Rivera, 31, mechanic, reported a severe animal bite 2 years ago. Quit his job 6 months later. Last known address came back empty. Vanessa Cole, 28, bartender. Attacked while jogging in Forest Park 18 months ago. Required 40 stitches. Moved out of her apartment a year ago. Current whereabouts unknown. Brandon Pierce, the construction worker who'd survived the attack at Powell Butte. The one who'd warned them about the creature. He'd been released from the hospital 2 weeks ago, and now he was gone. His apartment was abandoned. His wife said he'd started acting strange after the attack, disappearing at night, refusing to eat, staring at the moon through the window for hours. 3 days ago, he'd kissed her goodbye and walked out. She hadn't seen him since. We have 3 more werewolves loose in Portland, Torres said at their briefing. Maybe more, and they're all newly turned, which means they're unstable. Dangerous. How do we find them? Frank asked, though he already knew the answer. We wait for them to kill. Then we track them. Then we kill them before they can spread the infection further. It was a nightmare scenario. A werewolf outbreak in a major city. If they didn't contain it fast, if word got out, the panic would be catastrophic. The next full moon was in 4 days. They prepared, set up surveillance in parks across the city, positioned armed teams at strategic locations, stockpiled silver ammunition. Torres brought in more FBI agents, specialists who dealt with this kind of thing before. Frank barely slept. When he did, he dreamed of yellow eyes and teeth. He'd wake up sweating, reaching for his gun. Rachel wasn't doing much better. She'd lost weight, dark circles under her eyes. She jumped at sudden sounds. "We should have stayed cops," she said one night while they sat in Frank's apartment, going over maps for the 100th time. "Murder investigations I can handle. But this? Fighting monsters? This isn't what I signed up for." "Neither did I," Frank said. "But here we are. What if we can't stop them? What if they keep spreading?" "Then we keep fighting. Until they're all dead, or we are." It wasn't a comforting answer, but it was the only one he had. The full moon rose on a Friday night. The city held its breath. Frank and Rachel were stationed in Washington Park, the sprawling park that included the Rose Gardens and the Japanese Garden. Torres was in Forest Park with a larger team. Other units covered Mount Tabor, Powell Butte, and every other green space large enough to hide a werewolf. The night started quiet. Temperature in the mid-60s. Clear sky. The moon hung huge and bright, casting silver light across the park. Frank checked his rifle for the 10th time. Silver-tipped rounds, full magazine, safety off. Midnight came and went. Nothing. 1 a.m., still nothing. Frank was starting to think they'd guessed wrong when his radio crackled. "All units, we have multiple attacks in progress. Downtown. Repeat, multiple attacks downtown. Not in the parks, they're in the streets." Frank's blood went cold. Downtown, where thousands of people were out enjoying Friday night. Bars, restaurants, clubs. "Move!" Torres's voice commanded. "All units converge on downtown. This is not a drill." Frank and Rachel ran for their car, drove toward downtown with lights and sirens blazing. Other units were doing the same, all racing toward the city center. The radio exploded with calls. "Officer needs assistance, multiple casualties. Something is attacking people on 3rd Avenue. Another attack on Morrison Street. They're everywhere. Not one werewolf. Multiple werewolves. Attacking simultaneously. Coordinated. They'd been outsmarted. Frank pulled up on 3rd Avenue to find chaos. People running and screaming. Bodies on the sidewalk. Blood everywhere. And in the middle of it all, 3 massive shapes moving with terrible purpose. 3 werewolves, working together, hunting humans like wolves hunting elk. Frank grabbed his rifle and got out, Rachel beside him, other officers arriving from different directions. "We need to separate them," Frank shouted over the screams. "Take them one at a time." But the werewolves had other plans. They saw the police and charged as a coordinated unit. The battle that followed was brutal. Frank fired 3 shots into the nearest werewolf. The creature stumbled, but kept coming. It grabbed Officer Martinez and lifted him off the ground like he weighed nothing. Martinez screamed. The werewolf's jaws opened wide and clamped around his head. There was a sickening crunch. Martinez went limp. Rachel was firing at the second werewolf, a smaller one with gray fur. Her bullets hit it in the shoulder, the chest, the leg. It roared and charged her. She dove behind a parked car. The werewolf crashed into the vehicle hard enough to flip it onto its side. The third werewolf, the largest, had its eyes fixed on Frank. This one moved differently, more controlled, more intelligent. It stalked toward him slowly, almost casually, like it had all the time in the world. Frank reloaded. His hands were steady even though his heart was hammering. He'd killed 2 of these things already. He could kill another. The werewolf lunged. Frank fired. The bullet caught it in the throat. Blood sprayed. The creature's momentum carried it forward. It crashed into Frank, driving him to the pavement. Claws raked across his chest. His vest took most of it, but he felt ribs crack. He jammed his rifle barrel under the creature's jaw and pulled the trigger. The top of its head exploded. Brain matter splattered across Frank's face. The werewolf collapsed on top of him, crushing the air from his lungs. Rachel ran over and helped drag the massive body off him. Frank gasped, tasting blood and gunpowder. "You okay?" Rachel asked. "Yeah, get the others." But the other 2 werewolves were gone, fled into the maze of downtown streets while everyone was focused on their fallen packmate. Frank struggled to his feet. His chest felt like someone had hit it with a sledgehammer. He looked around at the carnage, bodies everywhere, civilians and cops, blood running in the gutters. Cars crashed into storefronts, broken glass covering the sidewalks. Torres arrived with backup, 20 FBI agents, all heavily armed. But they were too late. The werewolves had scattered. "We need to lock down the city," Torres said, surveying the damage. "Nothing in or out. Set up checkpoints. Search every building if we have to." Chief Richards was on scene within minutes, his face pale. "How many dead?" 12 civilians, an officer reported. 4 police officers, another 20 wounded. Richards closed his eyes. "This is a nightmare." "It's about to get worse," Torres said. She pointed at the dead werewolf, which was beginning to transform. The fur was receding, the bones reshaping. Within minutes, a human body lay on the blood-soaked pavement. Male, early 30s. His face was familiar. "That's James Rivera," Rachel said quietly. "The mechanic, one of the people we were looking for." "Which means the other 2 are still out there," Frank said. "Vanessa Cole and Brandon Pierce." Torres pulled out her phone and made a call. "I'm declaring a state of emergency, federal martial law. As of right now, Portland is under quarantine." The next 12 hours were chaos. Military units rolled into the city, roadblocks went up on every highway. National Guard troops patrolled the streets. Helicopters circled overhead with searchlights sweeping through the darkness. They found Vanessa Cole just before dawn. She'd holed up in an abandoned warehouse near the waterfront. When the SWAT team breached the building, she was in human form, naked and covered in blood that wasn't hers. She didn't resist, just sat there crying, repeating the same words over and over. I didn't want to hurt anyone. I tried to stop. I couldn't stop. They took her into custody, put her in a reinforced cell designed for violent offenders. Torres wanted her alive for questioning, to understand the infection better, to maybe find a cure. But Brandon Pierce was still missing. Frank spent the day searching. Every abandoned building, every parking garage, every place a man trying to hide from himself might go. He found Marcus just after sunset. The construction worker was sitting on the roof of a 10-story building downtown, looking out over the city. He was in human form, fully dressed, calm. Frank approached slowly, rifle slung over his shoulder but hands visible, non-threatening. "Marcus," he said quietly, "I'm Detective Morrison. We met at the hospital." Marcus didn't turn around. "I remember. You wanted to know what attacked me." "Yeah." "I didn't tell you everything." Brandon's voice was hollow. "It didn't just attack me. It bit me. And now I'm one of them." "I know. Do you?" Marcus finally turned. His eyes were bloodshot, his face gaunt. "Do you know what it's like? To feel yourself changing, to lose control of your own body? To wake up covered in blood and not remember how it got there?" Frank thought about the journal they'd found in Derek Walsh's apartment. The desperate entries documenting his transformation, his failed attempts to resist. "I can't imagine," Frank said honestly. "Last night I killed 6 people." Tears ran down Brandon's face. 6 innocent people. I remember all of it. The smell of their fear. The taste of their blood. And the worst part? I enjoyed it. While it was happening, while I was tearing them apart, I was happy. It's the infection, it's not you. Isn't it? Marcus stood up, walked to the edge of the roof, looked down at the street 10 stories below. "How do you know where the infection ends and I begin? Maybe I've always been a monster. Maybe the bite just let it out." "Marcus, step away from the edge." "Why? So you can lock me up? So I can transform again next month and kill more people? How many deaths before you just put me down like the rabid animal I am?" "We're looking for a cure. The FBI has scientists working on it. If we can study the infection, maybe we can reverse it." Marcus laughed. It was a bitter, broken sound. "There is no cure. I've read about this, researched it. Once you're infected for life. The only cure is death." He stepped closer to the edge. His toes hung over open air. "Don't," Frank said. "Please. There are people who care about you. Your wife, your family. My wife is terrified of me. She sees it in my eyes, the thing I've become, and my family." Marcus shook his head. "They're better off with me dead. Everyone is." "That's not true." "Yes, it is. And you know it. That's why you brought the silver bullets. That's why you've been hunting us. Because deep down, you know there's only one solution." Frank's hand moved toward his rifle. Not to shoot, just instinct. But Marcus saw the movement. "Do it," Marcus said. "Please. I don't want to kill anyone else. I don't want to become that thing again. End this." "I can't. Why not? You killed the others. You killed Coleman. You killed Walsh. You killed Rivera. What makes me different?" "You're asking me to. They were monsters. You're still human." "For how long? Until the next full moon? Until the next time something triggers the change?" Brandon's voice cracked. "I can feel it inside me, right now, pacing, hungry, waiting for its chance to come out. It's getting stronger, I'm getting weaker. Eventually, I won't be able to hold it back anymore." Frank lowered his rifle, stepped closer. Then we keep you contained. We keep you safe. We keep everyone safe. But I'm not executing you." Marcus stared at him for a long moment. Then, he smiled sadly. "You're a good man, Detective. Better than me." And he stepped backward off the roof. Frank lunged forward, but it was too late. Marcus fell. 10 stories. Frank watched him drop, watched him hit the pavement below with a sound that would haunt his dreams. He stood there on the roof, hands gripping the ledge, staring down at Brandon's broken body. Torres's voice crackled through his radio. "Morrison, report. Did you find Pierce?" Frank keyed his mic. "Yeah. He's dead." "Did you engage?" "No. He jumped." Silence on the radio. Then, "Understood. Return to base." Frank took the stairs down slowly. His ribs ached. His head pounded. He felt like he'd aged 10 years in the past 3 weeks. When he reached the street, the body was already being loaded into an ambulance. Paramedics worked with practiced efficiency. Just another death in a city full of them. Rachel was waiting by their car. She looked as exhausted as he felt. "3 down," she said. "How many more?" "Torres thinks we got them all. Everyone Derek Walsh bit is either dead or in custody. And Vanessa Cole. Locked up. They're running tests, trying to understand the infection." They drove back to the station in silence. The city around them was quiet. Martial law meant empty streets, no traffic, just military vehicles and the occasional patrol. At the station, Torres briefed them on the next steps. Vanessa Cole would be transferred to a federal facility. The bodies of the werewolves would be studied. A cover story was being prepared for the media. Gas leak, mass hysteria, something that sounded plausible. "What about the truth?" Frank asked. "The truth stays classified," Torres said. "The public can't know werewolves are real. The panic would destroy the city." "So we just lie? We protect people. That's the job." Frank wanted to argue, but he was too tired. He filed his report, turned in his weapon for inspection, went home. His apartment felt empty, cold. He showered, watching blood swirl down the drain for the second time in 3 weeks, bandaged his ribs, took 3 painkillers and lay down on his couch. He should sleep. He needed to sleep. But every time he closed his eyes, he saw Brandon Pierce stepping off that roof, saw the bodies on 3rd Avenue, saw yellow eyes in the darkness. His phone rang. Rachel. "Can't sleep either?" she asked. "No. Want company?" "Yeah." She arrived 20 minutes later with a bottle of whiskey and 2 glasses. They sat on his couch and drank in silence. Sometimes silence was better than words. Around 3 a.m., Rachel finally spoke. "Do you think it's over?" "I don't know. Torres seems to think so. But you don't." Frank took another drink. "I think we killed the ones we know about." "But how many don't we know about? How many people got bit over the past 5 years and never reported it? How many are out there right now, trying to control something they don't understand?" That's a scary thought. Everything about this is scary. Rachel finished her drink, poured another. "I've been thinking about quitting, going back to regular detective work, murder investigations, things that make sense." "You'd be good at that." "What about you?" Frank thought about it. Thought about going back to normal cases, normal crimes, normal evil. It sounded appealing, but he also thought about the people who died. David Patterson, Thomas and Kyle Garrett, the college students, the civilians on 3rd Avenue. They deserved justice. They deserved someone who understood what killed them. "I think I'm in this now," he said, "for better or worse." "Then I guess I am too." They finished the bottle and fell asleep on the couch. When Frank woke, sunlight was streaming through the windows. Rachel was gone. A note on the table said she'd gone home to sleep properly. Frank made coffee and checked his phone. 17 missed calls, all from Chief Richards. He called back. "Morrison, get to the station, now. We have a situation." "What kind of situation?" "Vanessa Cole escaped." Frank's blood went cold. "How?" "She transformed in her cell, bent the bars, killed 2 guards. We have units searching, but she's gone." "And Morrison, the full moon isn't for another 3 weeks. She's learning to control the change." Frank grabbed his gun and badge. The nightmare wasn't over. It was just beginning. Vanessa Cole was smart. Smarter than any werewolf they dealt with so far. She didn't leave obvious tracks, didn't attack randomly. She was planning, learning, adapting. The first sign was 3 days after her escape. A message spray-painted on the side of a building in the Pearl District. Simple. Direct. Terrifying. "You killed my pack. Now I kill yours." Frank stared at the words while forensics photographed them. The letters were 10 feet tall. Blood-red paint, fresh enough that it was still dripping. "She's declaring war," Torres said beside him. "This isn't about survival anymore. It's about revenge." "Can't really blame her," Rachel muttered. "We did kill everyone she knew." "They were killing innocent people," Frank said. "So are we, from her perspective." It was a thought Frank didn't want to entertain. But Rachel had a point. To Vanessa Cole, they were the monsters. They'd hunted down her pack, executed them one by one. Now she was alone, and angry. "We need to find her before she strikes," Torres said. "She's got maybe a week before the full moon. That's when she'll be strongest, most dangerous." They organized search teams again, swept through the city, checked every place Amy had ever lived, worked, or visited. Found nothing. She was a ghost. 2 days before the full moon, she made her first move. Frank was at home when his phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Hello?" "Detective Morrison." The voice was female, calm, almost pleasant. "We need to talk." "Vanessa Cole." "That's right. Don't bother tracing this. I'll be gone before you can triangulate." Frank waved at Rachel, who was sitting across from him reviewing files. She pulled out her phone and started making calls, trying to trace the number. "What do you want?" Frank asked. "I want you to understand something. I'm not evil. I'm not a monster. I'm just trying to survive." "You killed 6 people." "Your people killed my entire pack. Coleman was like a father to me. Derek was my friend. James, Marcus, they were family. And you murdered them. They were killing innocent civilians. Were we?" Vanessa's voice hardened. Coleman spent 3 years controlling himself. Never killed anyone unless he had no choice. Derek tried to resist, locked himself away. Marcus begged you to help him, and you killed them all anyway. Coleman killed 3 people before we even knew he existed. 3 people in 5 years. Compare that to how many people your police kill every year. How many innocent people die in your custody. But you're the heroes, right? You're just doing your job. Frank didn't have an answer for that. "I'm calling because I want to make a deal," Amy continued. "Leave me alone. Let me leave Portland. Let me go somewhere far away where I can live in peace, and I won't kill anyone else." "You know I can't do that." "Why not? Because your superiors won't allow it? Because there's a protocol you have to follow? Or because deep down you enjoy hunting us? You enjoy being the big bad wolf hunter?" "That's not fair." "Nothing about this is fair, detective. I didn't ask to be infected." "I was jogging in Forest Park. Derek attacked me. I nearly died. Spent 2 weeks in the hospital. And when I finally recovered, I started changing. I tried to get help. Tried to see doctors. But how do you explain to a therapist that you're turning into a werewolf?" Frank could hear the pain in her voice, the isolation, the fear. "If you turn yourself in," he said carefully, "we can help you. The FBI is researching the infection, looking for a cure." Amy laughed. It was a bitter sound. A cure. There is no cure. The only cure is death. And that's what you're really offering, isn't it? Turn myself in so you can experiment on me until I'm no longer useful, then put me down like a sick dog. That's not what would happen. Yes, it would. I've seen the news, the official stories, gas leaks, mass hysteria. You're covering this up, which means any promise you make to me is worthless. You'll say whatever you need to say to get me into custody, then you'll do whatever your bosses tell you to do. Rachel was making urgent hand gestures. They'd traced the call. Southeast Portland, somewhere near Hawthorne. "What if we could guarantee your safety?" Frank asked, stalling. "What if we put it in writing? Federal protection. A chance at a normal life." "There is no normal life for me. Not anymore. Every full moon I become a monster. Every month I risk killing someone. That's not a life. That's a prison sentence." "Then what do you want, really?" Silence on the line for a long moment. "I want revenge," Amy said finally. "I want everyone who killed my pack to feel what I felt, to lose everything, to be alone and afraid and hunted. That's not going to happen. We'll see. I've been watching you, Detective Morrison, you and Detective Winters. I know where you live, where you work, where you eat lunch, where you buy your coffee. I know your routines, your weaknesses, your pressure points." Frank's blood ran cold. "If you hurt Rachel, why would I hurt her? She's just doing her job, right? Just following orders. Same as you. No, Detective, I'm not going to hurt your partner. I'm going to hurt someone you both care about. Someone who doesn't even know they're in danger." The line went dead. Frank looked at Rachel. "Did we get a location?" "Southeast Hawthorne, but she's probably already gone." "Frank, who does she mean? Who do we both care about?" They made a list. Chief Richards, Torres, other officers they worked with, Frank's ex-wife, though they weren't close anymore, Rachel's family. They put protection details on everyone, plain clothes officers, 24-hour surveillance. They weren't taking any chances. But Amy didn't strike at any of them. She hit the hospital. Dr. Lisa Hayes, the medical examiner who'd performed autopsies on all the werewolf victims, was working late in the morgue. She was alone. Her assistant had gone home hours ago. Security footage showed Vanessa Cole entering through a side door at 11 p.m. She was in human form, wearing normal clothes, looking like any other hospital visitor. She walked straight to the morgue. No hesitation, like she knew exactly where she was going. Dr. Hayes never had a chance. They found her the next morning. The security guard making his rounds opened the morgue and found a slaughterhouse. Dr. Hayes had been torn apart. Not eaten, not killed quickly. Torn apart slowly, methodically. Someone had taken their time, made her suffer, and on the wall above her body, written in blood, was another message. "One down." Frank stood in the morgue, staring at what remained of Dr. Hayes. She'd been a good person, smart, dedicated. She'd helped them understand what they were dealing with. And now, she was dead because of it. "This is escalating," Torres said. Her voice was tight with anger. "Vanessa's not just defending herself anymore. She's on the offensive." "We need to find her now," Chief Richards said, "before she kills anyone else." But finding Vanessa Cole proved impossible. She'd gone completely underground. No phone activity, no digital footprint, no sightings. The full moon was tomorrow night. They set up command centers at every major park. armed teams ready to respond. Silver ammunition distributed to every officer. Hospitals on alert. The city was effectively under martial law again. Frank didn't sleep. Neither did Rachel. They spent the night before the full moon driving through Portland, searching, looking for any sign of Amy. As the sun set on the night of the full moon, they were no closer to finding her. "She could be anywhere," Rachel said as they drove through the Pearl District. "This is a big city. Thousands of places to hide." "She'll surface tonight," Frank said. "She can't help it. The full moon will force the transformation, and when she transforms, she'll hunt." "So we wait for her to kill someone else? Unless you have a better idea." Rachel didn't. They spent the early evening at the command center set up in Central Precinct. Reports came in from teams across the city. Nothing, no movement, no attacks, just waiting. Midnight came. Still nothing. 1 a.m. Silence. 2 a.m. Frank was starting to wonder if Amy had somehow left the city, despite the roadblocks when the first call came in. Multiple attacks, downtown, Pioneer Courthouse Square, mass casualties. Frank and Rachel were in their car and moving before the dispatcher finished speaking. Other units were responding too, converging on the square from all directions. Pioneer Courthouse Square was the heart of downtown Portland, a popular gathering place, usually full of people even late at night. Not anymore. Frank pulled up to find chaos, bodies everywhere, people screaming, running, blood on the brick pavement, and in the center of it all, Vanessa Cole. She was fully transformed, larger than any werewolf Frank had seen, nearly 9 feet tall. Her fur was dark gray, almost black. Her muscles rippled under the pelt, and her eyes glowed yellow, bright as headlights, fixed on Frank as he got out of the car. She smiled. Rows of teeth. Too many teeth. Then she howled. It was a sound of pure fury and pain and loss. A sound that echoed through the downtown canyon of buildings. And from different directions more howls answered. Frank's blood went ice cold. "She's not alone," Rachel whispered. From the shadows more shapes emerged. 3 more werewolves. Smaller than Amy, but still massive. Still dangerous. "How?" Torres demanded over the radio. "Where did they come from?" Frank understood immediately. She infected them after she escaped. She bit people. Created a new pack. "Oh God," Rachel said. The 4 werewolves spread out, circling the arriving police units. Tactical, coordinated. Amy was leading them, teaching them. "All units fire at will," Chief Richards commanded over the radio. "Take them down." Gunfire erupted. Dozens of officers firing at once. Silver-tipped bullets filled the air. The werewolves scattered, moving with impossible speed. One of the smaller werewolves went down almost immediately. Multiple hits to the chest and head. It collapsed and didn't move. The other 3 were harder to hit. They used cars for cover, used buildings, moved in patterns that made them difficult targets. Amy was the smartest. She didn't engage directly. Instead, she herded the police. Drew them into kill zones where her pack could attack from multiple angles. Officer Martinez went down screaming. One of the new werewolves had caught him. The creature's jaws closed around his leg and dragged him into an alley. His screams cut off suddenly. "We need to separate them," Frank shouted to Rachel. "Focus fire on Amy. She's the alpha. Kill her and the others might scatter." They advanced together, rifles raised. Other officers joined them. A dozen guns all trained on Vanessa Cole. She saw them coming. Crouched low, muscles tensing. Then she charged. Frank fired. Hit her in the shoulder. She stumbled but kept coming. Rachel fired. Hit her in the chest. Amy roared but didn't stop. A third shot from Torres hit Amy in the leg. The bone shattered. Amy went down hard, sliding across the pavement. The other two werewolves turned, saw their alpha down. They abandoned their attacks and rushed to defend her. "Now!" Torres screamed. "Hit them while they're grouped!" Every officer in range opened fire. The concentrated firepower was devastating. The two smaller werewolves were cut down in seconds, their bodies riddled with silver bullets. Amy tried to stand, couldn't. Her leg was useless. She dragged herself toward an alley, leaving a trail of blood. Frank approached slowly, rifle aimed at her head. "It's over, Amy." She turned, those yellow eyes fixed on him. Even wounded, even dying, she looked defiant. "You think you won," she said. Her voice was distorted, part human, part animal. "But you didn't. I bit 5 people before tonight." "5? Only 3 transformed in time to help me." "The other 2? She coughed. Blood splattered from her mouth. "They're still out there, still changing. And when they transform, they'll remember what you did to me, to us, and they'll come for you." "We'll find them," Frank said. "No, you won't. I chose carefully. People you'd never suspect. People who can blend in. People who will wait. Be patient. And when you've forgotten all about us, when you think you're safe, they'll strike." Amy smiled. Blood stained her teeth. "You can't win this war, Detective. Kill me. Kill my pack. But the infection spreads. For every one of us you kill, 2 more are created. Eventually, you'll lose." Frank tightened his finger on the trigger. "Maybe," he said. "But you won't be around to see it." He fired. The bullet punched through Vanessa's skull. She collapsed, twitched once, then went still. Around them, the square was silent except for moaning wounded and sirens approaching. They'd won the battle. But as Frank stood over Vanessa Cole's transforming body, watching fur recede and monster become human again, he couldn't shake her final words. 5 people, 2 still out there, infected, waiting. The war wasn't over. Detective Frank Morrison's hunt through Portland's darkest nights is a savage reminder that some monsters walk among us, hidden in plain sight until the moon reveals their true nature. The infected remain in the shadows, and the next transformation is inevitable. We'll be here to witness what emerges when darkness falls again. Like this video if you felt the terror stalking those blood-soaked streets. Comment below which kill scene chilled you to the bone, or if you believe werewolves could truly be hunting in our cities right now. Share this with someone who needs to know that the creatures from nightmares don't just exist in legends. They're out there, waiting for the full moon to rise. And if you dare to walk deeper into the darkness, subscribe to Mr. Midnight Horror and hit that notification bell. Because when the monsters come hunting, you'll want someone watching your back in the shadows. Until next time, stay vigilant under the moonlight.